Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. It's almost over. We're almost in the afternoon. Happy Friday. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, we're going to resume the meeting. Today is our final day of the CTCN Advisory Board. I just want to very quickly go through the agenda that we have before us today, and then I'll hand it over to Fred. So we had not quite finished yesterday agenda item 23.3, discussing CTCN projects in the pipeline. So Fred will lead us through the conclusion of that discussion. Then we'll go to item 24, knowledge transfer, capacity building, and RD&D. Then plan is to have a coffee break, 10:30 to 11. Then we have a session focusing on digitalization from 11 to 12. Lunch is 12 to 1. We come back from 1 to 2 for monitoring and evaluation. Then we discuss from 2 to 2:30 the CTCN gender work plan and updates. From 2:30 to 3, presentation of the CTCN communications and visibility strategy. Coffee break from 3 to 3:30. 3:30 to 4, other matters. And conclude at 4 to 4:30 with administrative matters, including the election of a new chair and vice chair for the advisory board. And the plan is to close the meeting today between 4:30 and 5 o'clock. I hope everyone can stay until we conclude the session this afternoon. With that, I hand the chair back over to Fred.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a good rest. And first of all, I would like to remind ourselves that yesterday was a very fruitful day because we had at least one very good output concluding on the prioritization criteria, which is very instrumental for the CTCN to facilitate its work. Now, we remain with one agenda item, which I think is linked to the projects that are in the pipeline for the Citizen Secretariat. And without much ado, I would like Rajiv to give a presentation on that. And then after that, we shall go to today's agenda, as already stated by the chair. So, Rajiv, you have the floor.
Good morning, chairs, and good morning, all the board members and colleagues. This is this. I'm going to present before you some of the plans which we have for 2024 and moving forward. And please excuse me because some of the information you already have. We have been discussing this for the last couple of days, and I have mentioned multiple times of what we are planning to do. But just for records, we have prepared a presentation which I am going to share with you. It would be all the presentations as usual would be on the on our website after the closure of meeting, so that if any information you want, you can access it. Can I have the slide, please? Next slide, please. Yeah, this provides just a snapshot of the various programs which we have, or various initiatives which have been which we are launching or we are working on as of now. This is not exclusive, means beside this also we receive technical assistance from the requests from the countries, which we utilize different sources of funding, but these are some dedicated sources of funding which we have got. The AFCEA program, AFCEA 1 program is going on. It is going to end in 2025. The Climate Change and Security Program funded by the European Commission, FPI, $3 million, it is going to end in 2026. And we have another EC program which we had signed this year. It is on promoting innovative technologies. It's again for 3 years ending in 2026. Next slide, please. Means, as you all know now, that the AFCEA 2 program has been approved. It's $10 million. It will means we have to sign the contract with the adaptation fund. It's a 5 years program ending in May 2030, and we are waiting for the results of AFCEA coordination service. Again, around $3 million program, or $3.7 million program ending in January 2029. But this would be again, it was not approved in this adaptation fund board meeting. It's going to be taken up again during the October meeting, and we'll get the results there. Next slide, please. Means this is just a snapshot on what we have done. Means under AFCEA 1, 87 countries applied for 25 technical assistance projects. Means the number of projects were more, but there were 87 countries which had put in their request, and the number of requests were more than 400. We chose 25 out of them, and including 10 from LDCs and 3 from SIDS. This has also led to creation of concept notes. Burundi, which was approved. We are working on Mongolia, St. Kitts, and Nevis. Means the TA which we did in St. Kitts and Nevis, it led to leveraging of Caribbean Public Health Agency fund of up to $100,000, and in Mongolia, thanks to the Canadian government, again, 7.5 million US dollars for leverage for this technical assistance which we had delivered. Next slide. This is again a snapshot. I'm not going to go in detail, but out of the 25 projects, 11 are in Africa, 7 for in Asia, 6 in the Latin America and Caribbean region, and 1 in the Eastern Europe region. So this is kind of a geographic distribution of the various technical assistance which we are delivering under AFCEA 1. Next slide, please. We have for the European Commission Climate Security Program, we have already identified the 10 countries which were there in the list, wherein you have communities which are at risk, and it's in Haiti, Sudan, Mali, Colombia, Zimbabwe, Central African Republic, Chad, Cameroon, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso. So this is the list of 10 countries where we would be working under this program. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, for the new European Commission program, there would be 7 technical assistants with special focus on LDCs and SIDS. CTCN will ensure a geographical balance. Will focus the focus of the program is also on creating enabling environment, both on adaptation and mitigation technologies. In 2023, we were looking at some of the lessons learned, which is coming out of the Youth Innovation Program, and on that basis, we had designed the program for 2024 and 2025. Means some of the key highlights for the program, which was finished in 2022, was that there were 335 participants from 72 different countries across 4 regions. There were 31 winning teams, which consisted of 105 team members. 20 teams are still in operations, means these 20 youth programs or youth startups are still in operations. 5 of them have advanced to a higher stage, and they have successfully raised funds through investors or grants and have grown their companies and customer base. Next slide, please. This is one of the programs which we would like to highlight. It came out, or this is one of the startup which we would like to highlight, which came up as a successful case from the Youth Innovation Program, which we finished in 2022. And this technology or this product, which was from Agronovate in Nigeria, they are offering smart storage devices that store fruits and vegetables for a period of 16 hours with very little power consumption. This solution tackles the cold chill problem in agriculture sector, and farmers, means it is estimated that farmers in Nigeria lose something like 52% of their harvest before it gets to the market. And this interim storage facility can help avoid some of them. Next slide, please. Similarly, this startup or this youth company based in Yemen, it provides small-scale waste-to-energy program, including converting bio-waste efficiently into clean and into organic fertilizers. This is kind of a mobile, easy to use, install biogas systems. This particular company has been able to raise $50,000 and was able to serve 32 customers already. Next slide. Now, based on our experience, we have again designed this program, and we are going to relaunch it. And there would be 4 stages for this program: ideation, incubation, acceleration, and creating a young or a youth community for innovation. Under ideation, we will provide support through a 7-day online event so that we can refine the ideas, we can look at the various ideas of the applicant, refine it, and further provide guidance. Then there would be a 12 weeks hybrid meeting to mentor them and to help them establish their startups, and it would be followed by a 4-week accelerator program to really launch their products in the market. At the end of it, what we plan to do, as I have mentioned earlier, we are trying to work with Google, and we are going to create a network of entrepreneurs which would further provide guidance and which would provide a platform wherein all these young innovation startups can start interacting with each other and identify business opportunities. Through the Google program, there have been some discussion wherein we can link them up to some kind of angel investors who would be interested in these kind of companies and this kind of companies. So this is the program which is going to be launched. Largely, we are focusing on 3 sectors, but it is going to be it is going to be more. It is going to be across the 5 system transformation areas, which is there in the program of work. Like in sustainable mobility, we can look at alternative fuels, engines, shared mobility practices, non-motorized mobility, under business and industry, carbon removal technologies, waste management, recycling, decarbonization, environmental monitoring and data analytics, and climate finance, and buildings and infrastructure, green buildings, urban planning, resilient cities, underwater food energy nexus, sustainable agriculture practices, food alternatives, sustainable land use and agroforestry, and under energy systems, renewable energy, energy storage, smart grids, and energy efficiency and energy management. Means these are very tentative topics which we think would be, we are going to receive interest from the youth companies for further support and further guidance. This is a 2 years program for 2024 and 2025. We are going to launch immediately after the AB meeting. The total estimated budget for 2 years would be in the range of $450,000 to $500,000. Thank you. That was my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. I think without much delay, I'll open the floor for discussions, starting with the members of the advisory board, and then also shall get some contributions or clarifications from the observers. So the floor is open. Can we start with Maria?
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, and Rajiv for the presentation. The first thing is that the youth constituency, of course, wants to congratulate the Secretariat for the successful work of 2021 and 2022 with the Youth Innovation Labs. And now we welcome, of course, the launch of a second edition of the now called YCI. We also appreciate the adoption of the recommendations made previously in terms of the selection criteria of the participants, now considering gender balance, prioritization of underrepresented geographies and groups, and a strong M&E to track on the impact of the selected or awardees. We see here a possibility to connect some of the MIEs of this program with the general CTC and M&E. So we also see reflected progress on youth considerations and the work that is being done already by the Secretariat in the general M&E. We can discuss that later. In addition, we would appreciate that the budget is included in the document that was shared. And finally, the constituency, of course, stands ready to be involved in the implementation like it was done in the past. in the selection committee and assessing applications, and of course assisting with communications and outreach to the broader youth constituency. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Christopher?
Thank you very much, Rajiv. Really great to see this information. In the case of the $2 million project from the EU, I mean, really just to reiterate that like the selection of the projects will happen in the next couple of months. It's Nadej that is the project manager for this. So really I'm encouraging all the NDEs to spread information to your regions, and really if you want to get this support for these 70 EAs from the European Union, apply now, because it's really in the next couple of months that the selection of project from the secretariats will happen. In terms of the concept note, so many thanks to the secretariat for that. Very much agreeing with Maria's comments. It would be very good to get the budget included in the concept note. I'm assuming that this is already included in the 2024 budget. But is that the full $500,000 that is incorporated in this year's budget, or is it half and then half? Okay, so half will be, because that helps us plan for the budget next year. And I also assume that you already have the kind of staff allocated that would be doing that, so it's very good. Would also be very useful to maybe get a breakdown per region for the new budget in the same way that you have on page 2 with the different amounts of what you expect in the different regions. Would be also very useful for the new project, but very much supporting the concept note. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Annie?
Thank you very much. Very impressive. I was particularly appreciative of the fact that a number of these projects are growing and really moving on to larger initiatives with support from some of our governments. And I really, really appreciated the note of bringing in angel investors to make sure that those les petites pousses, the young, small companies really get to grow and participate fully in the economy of their countries moving forward. And I really wish the best for the next iteration of this really great set of projects. Merci.
Thank you, Annie. Justin?
Thank you, Fred. And again, just wanted to echo everything that's been said in terms of the presentation. Thank you, it's excellent. It's, what is it, Wednesday today, it's day 4 for some of us. It's hard to not get excited about this one, especially in terms of youth climate innovation, what's not to like. I was just going to ask a clarifying question, Rajiv, because you've mentioned Google a couple of times in terms of maybe some of their support, because I think Annie's just touched on angel investors, Maria and I have just had a quick bilateral. I think there's potential to link a lot of the private sector business community to these kinds of projects and potentially see if this is an angle where we can leverage the resource mobilization strategy. So I'm just wondering if we can kind of see within our own networks if there's additional partners that want to come in and support this, because I'm pretty sure that they're out there and they're going to be very, very interested in this.
Thank you, Justin. I don't see any requests from Ichiro.
Thank you very much. I also very much welcome this Youth Innovation Program. I have very basic question. So this the support for this Youth Innovation Program is located under what program? Capacity building? I don't think it's technical assistance. Right? I don't know. So please let me know.
Yeah, this is. Can I? Sorry.
I thought you'd wait and then you address all the issues. I don't know. Can we? If there's no request from the advisory board, can we shift very quickly to the observers? Do you have any request or any clarification or question? I don't see any. So maybe I just say also give my overall sort of observation, but may not be directly related to this, but it's quite linked. When we had our constituency meeting, we looked at the various programs, activities of the technology mechanism, including the CTCN. And we realize there are some of these initiatives that may be very good, very useful, but they are not popular, and they are not made relevant to the target group, the developing countries. The case in question is things to do with the blockchain, things to do with the technology ledgers. These, if you read the literature on them, they are very useful. But in the context of climate change technology, the applicability, the understanding by the target group, we should make it very clear, because everyone knows about the advantage of blockchain, but also know of the shortcomings. The technology ledger, what is its use in our process here? We should put it very clear, any initiative. And now to come to the actual point is that what the Secretariat has presented, these are very good activities, good elements of the program, but they may not be popular. The target group, some few may be in the know, others may not know complete about it, what the adaptation fund, for example, what is doing with the CTCN, and how. So what avenue can we use to increase the popularity of the elements of these programs? Now, one element could be the NDE forum. The NDEs, of course, as we know, we have already agreed, and we know they are very important. Can we use the NDE forum to make such presentation and also to sensitize them on what the CTCN has in its program, so that they can spread the message in their respective countries? I know some NDEs are very vigilant, they are in the know, but not all of them are aware of this. So I just wanted to put that general observation. In fact, we were asking ourselves, we asked Christian, can you tell us the application, the understanding of blockchain in our process here? None of us could give an explanation. And if the members of the advisory board are not able to explain the application, the relevance of this, then how about the intended users? So this is a general statement. We should all work together to make sure that these programs are popular, they are relevant, and they are implementable in our respective constituencies. Thank you. So Rajiv, you can respond to the issues raised, then maybe we will shift to another agenda item. Thank you.
All points are very well taken. Let me try to respond to some of the direct queries. With regards to the budget, where it is not going to be under technical assistance, so it would cut across, because it is a cross-cutting issue. It would cut across stakeholder engagements, networking, and capacity building kind of exercises. So it would be under that. Replying to Christopher's comment on the budget, yes, we will include a consolidated budget in the document, and insert the consolidated budget in the project document. We are still. It would be difficult at this stage to really break down the budget as per the regions, because it also depends on what kind of project ideas comes from the region and how many of them are selected. And our budget region-wise would be more dependent on that. Rather, we don't want to fix up the budget for each region and then leave out some of the good examples which would have wider application. Region is just a geographic distribution, but maybe from Latin America we get 10 beautiful ideas which we feel, or which the committee would feel that it has the potential of scaling up, attract more angel investors, things like that. So uh, I hope what we are doing. I hope that this clarifies your question on this particular thing. Linking with the networks, existing networks, the private sector and angel investors, definitely it would be a kind of an exercise which would happen only in 2025, not in 2024. Means later half of 2025, when we have matured project ideas and business proposals. Only then we can go to angel investors, because if we prematurely bring them in, you know, they start losing interest. And again, even for us in the secretariat, this is kind of a first time we are going to do this exercise, so we still have to think through on how we do it. Should we take these some selected 4 or 5 companies to the COP or to any other forums wherein they have chances of attracting investments? We can invite them to our ND forums, but ND forums are mostly government representatives. So we still have to fine tune that aspect. And I take note of the interest expressed by the Yangon constituency to be part of the group which selects some of the proposals which come in, and we'll keep you in the loop as we move forward. And yes, Fred, you know, as a secretariat, I'll try to tell our experience. Means this youth innovation lab is specifically targeting youth, and sometimes when the youth approaches the NDEs, they get mangled into the bureaucratic process, because each NDE has its own criteria on how they select requests to be sent to the CTCN. And we have heard in the past some representations by some of the companies that they have a great idea, but it is not, means why should they be going through the NDs and things like that. So we are using the NDs forum to spread out the word about Youth Climate Innovation Labs and the other programs. At the same time, we are also using other channels to reach out, so that the real companies, small companies, can come up and present their cases and be part of this program. So we will be using both the channels. It will not just be confined to the ND forums, but ND forums provide us with a platform to sensitize the NDs, and I hope that the NDs go back to their respective countries and they sensitize their major stakeholders, so that we get good response for any program which we launch. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rajiv, for that explanation and clarification. I don't see any more, so I'll take this. Oh, Ariesta.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and good morning, colleagues. Just responding to your questions and perhaps suggestions, and complement with Rajiv has mentioned. In Glasgow, parties has adopted the Glasgow Work Programme on ACE. Is basically, there is an action plan under the Glasgow Work Programme that have 4 priority areas: policy coherence, coordinated action, tools and support, monitoring and evaluation and reporting. While the ACE is not solely focused on youth, but more on the empowerment of the public also, I see that there are rooms that can be explored with the UNFCCC Secretariat in terms of raising the visibility of the Youth Innovations Program. Almost every year, the ACE team is organizing the Youth Dialogue, and I think there is a prime opportunity also for the CTCN to actually showcase this as part of the not only raising awareness, but also informing the opportunities for youth that attending. So it's just a different space where you actually can promote this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariesta. Sigrid.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I think these programs are very exciting, but I just wanted to comment on something perhaps slightly broader that just came to my mind. I hope you permit me. I hear a bit about that we have to enhance ways of NDEs to get information on what kind of requests they can make. So for example, this platform, I think this sounds really, really good in order to really reach out so they know what we have to offer them. And I think, or we in Sweden, I've been working closely with the Swedish NDE to try to understand, okay, how can we make CTCN more visible in Sweden, and how can Sweden support CTCN? But then once we kind of know what Sweden has to offer to CTCN and NDEs, we have to find a way to communicate this to NDEs. So I think, yeah, to enhance communication between perhaps also developed country NDEs and developing countries NDEs could be useful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sigrid. I believe these were mainly information sharing and some guidance. They are not questions that may require response. So allow me to let the chair, Erin, continue with the next agenda item. Erin.
Thank you. We now move to agenda item 24 on knowledge transfer, capacity building, and research development and demonstration, or RD&D. The advisory board will be asked to take note of the information provided. Knowledge transfer and capacity building have been core activities of the CTCN, along with technical assistance. The Secretariat offers several NDE forums, workshops, and seminars to facilitate, coordinate, and strengthen our impact on key stakeholders in this ecosystem. Additionally, collaborative RD&D is one of the main mandates of the CTCN Palo office in Korea, which was launched in 2022. The Secretariat will present an overview of the capacity building support implemented, as well as the planned activities for the coming year. I would like to ask the CTCN Secretariat to present on these activities. Ms. Jiwon Kim and Mr. Woo-Jin Han, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jae-won, Capacity Building and Network Engagement Specialist, working from Palo office, which is located in Seongdo. Before we dive deeper into the planned activities and webinars for 2024, I would like to take this chance to give you a snapshot of what we have done so far, so that you understand where we should go forward, as well as get some guidance from you in terms of the planned activities for 2024 related to the capacity building. At a glance, for the past 10 years, we have delivered a total of over 466 service activities related to the capacity building, which equals to the average of 3.8 activities per month, reached or benefited over 4,600 individuals. These numbers are based on the participants reported in both annual report of CTCN as well as PCCB report and the archived resources available in our website. Following PCCB's service type categories, we could confidently say that the web-based seminar were implemented the most, perpetuating the value of inclusivity for a wider reach in knowledge sharing. Though we have a unique category that we can call in-project activities, which captures all micro and macro level capacity building programs or activities supported as part of our technical assistance projects. In a 10-year timeline, web-based seminars were most widely implemented in our early stage of operation to ensure, first, wider reach to our audience, second, to raise the awareness of CTCN service areas in general. The quantity of these tangible knowledge materials then got picked up by our regional teams. Therefore, it was disseminated, ensuring the content reaches its audience with the high quality. Our service for capacity building evolved as the decisions and the guidelines were updated by the parties. As mentioned earlier, in the early days of CTCN, our service to support the creation of an enabling environment was delivered as part of our TA projects. Out of 312 total technical system projects delivered for the past 10 years, more than a half of all the projects had an activity component calling capacitating communities or project stakeholders. Of those, we can confidently say that there are 5 TAs were specifically just designed to support the capacity building of countries. Since 2022, in response to the call for a tailored service delivery, we have slowly taken the segment-specific activities, therefore trying to reach the key audiences with the tailored service related to the capacity building. Moving forward, we will keep taking a strategic and programmatic approach for activities to be inclusive and impact measurable. One of the things that I found it most challenging in analyzing our previous capacity building programs was where are the impacts and how can we even measure it, because capacity building itself is a process, not an output, it's an endless input. So by executing one of 8 programs on capacity building, network engagement, and collaborative RD&D facilitation, our service area of capacity building ensures will try to ensure both quality as well as quantity. Indeed, our capacity building activities are not exclusive product of CTCN, but are a collective service of UNFCCC mechanism and those who are in this ecosystem. In every capacity building activities, we have engaged at least one external, internal, private, public sector, academia, or finance collaborators. These are the just logos of our collaborators, just to appreciate the years that we had together with them. Taking this collective approach, we plan to deliver activities in 2024 to continue support the countries to create, strengthen, or even maintain the enabling environment that's already set for the climate technology innovation and climate action. 5 programs are in different stages of progress in terms of whether it's in design or in stakeholder seeking or it's under preparation. Based on the NDC analysis, this year's Global Capacity Building Program will focus on AI-related technology information sharing across 3 regions. 2 to 3 day in-person training program will be delivered throughout this year. For the network engagement program, we've designed 2 programs. First one is a training on TA bidding process to encourage the participation of network members to our open bidding process. We have already covered our very first thematic training on this on 3rd of April through our Songdo office, and the other 4 parts will be followed. Stakeholder engagement program, which refers to the annual ND forum as well as a structured dialogue with NDAs. We are in close discussion with GCF to support the NDEs dialogue with NDAs through their program, through GCF's program, and the annual ND forum will be running 3 regions covering Africa, Asia, and Latin America, which will be the in-person mode. Knowledge products needs also to be there to continuously disseminate the information that's been covered in our in-person meetings. So we will be updating our Green Hydrogen Project booklet to cover all the other ongoing projects that are happening in Globe, therefore disseminate. We really want to update the ND operating manual because it was made in 2015 and never been looked up after that. So we will try to incorporate all the guidance coming from you today to update the ND operating manual by the end of this year. Collaborative RD&D facilitation programs are a very new program that we have started implementing since last year. We have themed by its target audience, its objective, and its mode differently. There are 3 key types of programs that we could call that it facilitates the collaborative RD&D, whether that's North-South or South-South collaboration. We have 3 programs planned for this year. But for the strategy part, I will pass it on to Jin for his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chair. My name is Woo Jin Han, mainly working on RD&D issues. I'm based in Copenhagen. Given that the collaborative RD&D is one of the CTCN's key mandates, especially for Palo office, we are establishing vision, strategy, and program of CTCN on collaborative RD&D. And let me briefly introduce the background first. So in 2007, there are 4 recommendations were suggested by the Secretariat and the expert group on technology transfer in different areas to enhance the implementation of the technology transfer framework. And the 4th recommendation addresses the promotion of collaborative research and development on technologies. Also, collaborative RD&D is explicitly recognized in the Paris Agreement in relation to the technology framework. Next, please. In 2018, under innovation theme of the technology framework, new collaborative approaches to climate technology research, development, and demonstration was considered as a way to foster innovations. There are 4 ways, and you can, I'd like to skip this 4 ways. Next, please. In 2022, the CTCN Palo office launched as a center of excellence on research, development, and demonstration on climate technologies. And 5 one-hour webinars on collaborative RD&D were organized for 5 system transformation areas last year, as shown in this slide. And also bridge building activities with NDEs for collaborative RD&D and matchmaking have been implemented. So to strategically approach the mandate imposed on CTCN Palo office, we Secretariat have decided to establish vision, strategy, and program of collaborative RD&D of CTCN. And the objective of this work is to derive a long-term strategy for collaborative RD&D and a corresponding program for CTCN. This will be accomplished by identifying and categorizing collaborative RD&D based on CTCN's activities, and by establishing vision strategies for CTCN's collaborative RD&D to support endogenous RD&D capacity building on developing countries, and by developing a collaborative RD&D program and guidelines. Next, please. And there are 3 expected deliverables. The first one is strategy report of collaborative RD&D, which includes definition of collaborative RD&D with comparison between it and general RD&D. And also it will include vision and strategies. Next, please. And the second one is analysis report of collaborative RD&D's categories. This will provide the categories of collaborative RD&D based on CTCN's roles and mandates, as well as the best practices. Next, please. And the last one is guideline manual for collaborative RD&D program. This will include the concept of the collaborative RD&D program, and the guideline or manual is for the CTCN Secretariat to manage and apply the program, and for stakeholders such as NDEs to participate in this program. So we have already started this project from last February, and we expect to complete it by the end of September this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jiwon and Woo Jin. We know how relevant these activities are for enhancing and building the capacities of NDEs, and they're really core elements of the CTCN's activities. I now invite members to indicate if you have any questions or comments on the presentation or related to this topic in order to provide guidance on the matter. The floor is now open. Halima, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. And thank you for the 2 presentations. It gives a bit of more awareness on what you're doing on capacity building and RD&D. But my question is for Woo Jin. We know that apart from the RD&D which you presented, we had a little bit of talk at the constituency meeting, wondering what further advantage the CTCN liaison office within the GCF would be. We wondered if your closeness in proximity to the GCF facilitates any kind of financial support to the CTCN and its activities.
Thank you, Halima. Let's take other questions or comments, and then we'll give the Secretariat a chance to respond. So I saw Tibian and then Stephen. Tibian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the team for the presentation. I just wanted to highlight that the tech is currently doing some work on research, development, and demonstration regarding last year we did the survey on future needs of clean tech research, development and demonstration, and this year there will be work on energy storage, and I think it's very interesting and great to see the work that the Palo team has been doing, and I think in this specific activity and this line of work there is a lot of room to collaborate with the tech, and I think we'd extend that invitation to work with you guys on this this year, and to also just see other areas and opportunities for us to work on RD&D. Thanks.
Thank you, Tibian. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you both for the very informative presentations. I also have a question to Wu Jin. I'd be very interested to learn more about the potential use cases of the manuals on collaborative RD&D and how the Secretariat intends to put these at the disposal of stakeholders. I think that this has a lot of potential. I would also echo the comments of the Tech Chair about the value of partnering with the Tech, and also note that the Tech has produced quite a large literature on collaborative RD&D, including a quite comprehensive report a couple of years ago, which might be a useful resource if you haven't looked at it already, but perhaps you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Anna, you have the floor.
Thank you very much to both of you. What you do is very, very important. I was really happy to see the number of logos that were popping up on the screen in terms of working with others and leveraging other initiatives and organizations. And I just want to give a special shout out to the collaboration with the Clean Energy Ministerial. It's really great to see, because there's a lot that goes into these multilateral initiatives that a lot of our governments are very, very involved in. And so if we can come at it from both ends, that just makes things splash even more. And if there's a need to call on us, AB members, to grease some wheels, never hesitate to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Fred, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to seek some clarification and maybe way forward on some of the issues related to capacity building. And let me appreciate the government of South Korea for the liaison office. My first sort of observation is, to what extent are we effectively using this liaison office in South Korea? It could be a very important area for also addressing issues to do with the capacity building within the region. And this could be also help in assessing what are the capacity building needs of the countries of that region, so that we can address them effectively. And then when you look at the initiatives related to capacity building, they are quite useful. But we also have the capacity building needs of developing countries reflected in their TNAs. How do we prioritize those? How do we go about identifying these capacity building initiatives, taking into account that the developing countries have raised their capacity building needs in their TNAs? So I would like to see how that one is. Then there has been a common call by developing countries that they would like to enhance their capacity to at least translate the outcomes of the TNAs into ideas and concepts. I know CTCN does very well when the concepts are submitted to them for consideration and for translating them into full-scale projects. But the countries, some of them, do not even have the capacity to translate ideas into concepts. Can this office, liaison office, consider the status of the countries there and start with the NDEs, try to build their capacities in translating the outcomes of TNAs into ideas and concepts which can be submitted to CTCN for further consideration. I think that is a very constructive way to go about these issues and try to cause impact. Once we have got that critical mass of NDEs that are able to come up with the appropriate concepts, I think that is a fair transformation that can be seen. Then also the TEC and the CTN. I request that there should be initiative to enhance your popularity and visibility together. And that is one way of capacity building. If the capacity buildings may not be knowing clearly what they can do with the tech in terms of their capacities, what they can do with the CTCN. So it's important for the CTN, the tech, to continue sensitizing, creating awareness about their role, their relevance to the countries in advancing technology development and transfer. Otherwise, may sit here, we know the tech is the policy wing, CTCN is the implementation wing, but what is the scope of their operation? How far can they go? How can they, what is the modality they can use to work together with the parties? Because our interest is not only this meeting here. This meeting is to help us reach those. But now, from here, how is the tech and the citizen, how are they going to reach those countries? Are they aware that the tech is there? Are they aware that the tech and the citizen, they're supposed to be moving together? Do they know that the tech and the citizen have been put in place to help them? And are they getting much help from these technology mechanisms? I think that should be working very well if we can enhance that outreach, that sensitization to those countries. And then my last comment is about this research development and deployment. I think, to me, this remains, I know research is very expensive, but how effectively can we do it? At least some element of research with the parties that are concerned so that they know they are involved in research and their capacity is built on research. How can we enhance these research initiatives? The element of research, many NDs may not even understand what research is. Or they know, but they don't know how to use their knowledge in research in the context of climate technology development and transfer. So how do we interface with the NDEs and parties in advancing the issue of research? With the research and development, without research and development, technology may not be implemented very effectively. So those are my observations, and thank you, Chair, for letting me air those views. I hope they make sense, and we may take what makes sense. What doesn't make sense, we leave out. Thank you.
So, that's excellent guidance, Fred. Thank you. I think we should all follow that advice. I'd like to ask the Secretary if you can respond to the questions and comments that have been raised. Okay, it was a lot, but okay, Dietram, and then we'll ask the Secretary to respond. Dietram, you have the floor.
Thanks, Arun, Chair. So I just wanted to respond to the co-chair, to Fred. First of all, many thanks. I think also for the invitation to collaborate here with the tech, and I think it is I would very much welcome this. I participate myself as a tech member in the NDE forum, and I find it very valuable. And as basically co-chair of the tech, I think with my colleagues, I think we will also encourage other tech members to do the same, to participate actively in NDE forums and other invitations we receive from the CTCN. So I think this is highly appreciated. I also would like to echo Fred's ideas on capacity building for the NDEs, on basically enhancing TA requests or making proposals. And I think this is a really good, I think a very critical element for the success of NDEs, to write successful proposals, to raise money. And I think would be fantastic if I think the RDD&D Center basically can support that. And also if we can do anything from the tech side, very well happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Dietram. We appreciate that. Now I'd like to ask the Secretary to respond to the comments and questions that have been made.
Thank you for all the questions and guidance and suggestions. Means this year we have started a kind of a systemic process of how we can move on the collaborative RD&D. And this manual which we are going to come out would be a kind of a guidance, not only to the Secretariat, but also to the countries and to the NDs on what they can seek from the CTCN. Now, RD&D by itself is a very complicated, tough, and also financial resource intensive process. But what we also realized during our journey in the last 10 years, that when we are talking to institutions and they have technologies, they think that these technologies can be really applied to any of the countries. And I'll give you one small example. We were working with institutions which have developed an advanced recycling technologies for the solar panels and the modules. And we thought it's a good technology, and it can be applied, it can be spread out to the developing countries, specifically in Africa, specifically wherein we see a huge boom of solar PV applications coming up. So they have a life. After 20 years, it's going to all become electronic waste. So we need to start introducing technologies now. And we brought these two parties together, some of the countries in Africa and that particular institution. We brought them together. They explained their technology. Means it's very good. But when we started analyzing more, we also found out that in order for that particular technology to come in any of the countries, there are various gaps and barriers. There are policy gaps. There is no policy, or there is no regulation on recyclability of solar modules. The cost economics was not working out. So it was a lesson learned even for that particular institute, and we requested them to start simplifying their technology so that it can be readily applied, it becomes more cost efficient. So this kind of a collaboration it's a kind of a two-way street. And this is what we are trying to do, or what we'll be trying to do in a very systemic manner as we move along under this specific agenda item on collaborative RD&D. Some of the technologies like efficient production of biochars. We are working again with an institution wherein they have this technology, and we are seeing how it can be applied in Solomon Island, where there is a lot of coconut plantation and a lot of coconut shell which goes as waste. So can this technology be applied to that coconut shells? Again, some RD&D work needs to be done, some data needs to be done, some kind of a demonstration and pilot needs to be done. Same situation in Cote d'Ivoire. And these are the kind of linkages which we are trying to establish under this program. It would require, definitely it would require to dive more deep into some of the research institutions and existing capacities in the developing countries, and link them with the other institutions which have these technologies and which have this capacity to implement. Moving on to the role of the Partnership and Liaison Office. The Partnership and Liaison Office is focusing on this aspect largely, but all the other managers from the region, they are trying to come up with this kind of a demand on identification of technologies and see which institution matches the best. On Halima's question, specifically on the GCF and the relationship, so what we have observed, and this Partnership and Liaison Office is in operations for the last couple of years, our interaction with the GCF has increased a lot. Means it's not only just about the money which have been leveraged from the GCF, but really team-to-team interaction between the GCF and the CTCN Secretariat has increased a lot, and definitely including the tech. And one of the roles of this partnership, of this partnership office also is, now any program which we do, any capacity building program which we do, GCF is always there as a partner, and that helps send out a message to the NDEs and also to the NDAs to really start working closely with their NDEs. So these are some of the results which unfortunately we are not able to quantify as of now. We are also in discussion with various countries. For example, I'll give you again an example. We are organizing an NDE forum in the first week of July for the Asia and the Pacific region. And GCF is there. So there would be many speakers coming from the GCF who would explain that in some of the countries, what are the projects which they have approved. And this would again provide ideas and guidance to, as you said, Fred, build capacity within the NDE group on what ideas can be taken forward, what are the kind of projects with the GCF approved. So this interaction is increasing on a kind of a day-to-day, daily basis. We are very hopeful that some of these ideas will start maturing and it would be converted into kind of large-scale projects for the countries. Another important aspect which is that since the office is there, we receive number of NDEs and also the NDAs. So they come and talk to us on what we are doing, and therefore again the message goes out that in order to enhance further linkage and cooperation, linkage between the technology and the finance mechanism at a national level, the NDEs and the NDAs needs to start working together. There was a whole delegation from Zambia Science, STI, Science, Technology and Innovation Ministry, which visited our office as a part of a program, and we had a kind of more than half a day interaction with the GCF. Now, results of this may not always lead to leveraging of funding, but this interaction have increased, and it is because of our presence in the partnership in the liaison office. The partnership and liaison office moving forward is also going to be the kind of a hub for the Asia, is going to be hub for the Asia region as we move forward, because also it is much more easier to connect with the SIDS and the Pacific Island countries being based in Songdo than being based anywhere else in Asia. These are some, but these are some of the things which we are doing, and we hope that that in future moving forward, we are able to really work on some of this. Means again, some examples like we are working in Cambodia to develop a concept note. Now, in order to go to the GCF, you require a kind of a direct access entities which have larger chances, or some kind of a banking facility which has larger chances, which can co-finance some of the work. And this is coming from, and we are in active discussions with the institutions which are based in Korea, if they can partner with us on this particular aspect. So there are small activities which are happening, and we hope that we are able to see the results in the following months. Thank you.
Mohammed, you have the floor, and then if any observers would like to speak on this agenda, please raise your flags. Thank you. Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Je m'excuse d'être le dernier de prendre la parole.
Me voilà.
Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone.
Parfait.
Go ahead.
Too many volunteers. My apologies for being the last one to take the floor.
Donc, merci pour les présentations sur le renforcement des capacités. Donc, j'ai bien suivi les présentations, mais je n'ai pas eu l'existence de capacités sur les peuples autochtones. Donc, nous demandons quelques informations sur l'absence des capacités, de renforcement des capacités des peuples autochtones. Okay.
So this refers back to the first presentation from Rajiv. Thank you for the presentations on the strengthening of capacities. I have followed the presentations and did not see any programs on the strengthening of indigenous peoples' capacities. And in this sense, we would like to have some information on the reason for this absence.
Deuxième point, donc, est-ce qu'il y aura une autre opportunité de programmer des ateliers de renforcement des capacités pour les peuples autochtones?
And my apologies, this was not in reference to Rajiv's presentation, but to Jaewon's presentation on capacity building. My second point is to ask whether there will be other opportunities for programs or workshops for capacity building of indigenous peoples.
Donc, les organisations des peuples autochtones dans les 7 régions socioculturelles sont disponibles à collaborer pleinement avec le CTCN pour organiser des ateliers de renforcement des capacités pour les peuples autochtones. Ce sera une ouverture très importante pour ce groupe de peuples autochtones. Merci.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Okay.
I see no other flags.
Should I translate, Erwin?
I'm sorry.
The Organization of Indigenous People in the 7 regions stand ready to collaborate with the CTCN Secretariat to organize workshops, capacity building workshops for Indigenous peoples. It would be a very important opening for this group.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. I see one flag from an observer. and then we'll close the list of speakers, and I'll ask the Secretariat if they would like to respond briefly to these final 2 rounds of comments. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the presentation on knowledge transfer and capacity building and research and development. I think as an observer, the aspect of knowledge transfer and capacity building provides an opportunity for the CTCN to contribute immensely in developing countries. Given the challenges and the lack of adequate technologies, this aspect and the project and work on knowledge transfer and capacity building is an avenue that can provide wider impact in the work of developing countries where it is perceived to be lacking. For instance, considering like knowledge dissemination, the planned events and webinars and the activities that promote knowledge transfer can provide valuable information for sharing technologies that can impact on climate change, given the emerging technologies that come up and can reduce the impact of climate change in developing countries. Areas like skills enhancement, capacity building that could empower individuals and the organizations can provide information about climate technologies. I think knowledge transfer and this aspect in this project supported by Korea can have an impact on climate on climate change in developing countries. Aspects like collaborative approaches enhanced with the research and development are paramount for contributing to enhancing partnerships and cooperation in advancing technology solutions for climate mitigation and adaptation. As an observer, I would really be grateful to the work of knowledge sharing supported by CTCN in reducing the impact of climate change. Thank you. These are my comments.
Thank you again for your participation in our meeting and for those comments. So we now have time for the Secretary to give a brief response to the final 2 sets of comments that we heard, and then we'll be able to take a break.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for your points. When we look at our capacity building portfolio or programs, means the capacity building is, and as Jaewon has mentioned in her slide, capacity building is also intrinsic and internal part of every technical assistance request. And specifically during technical assistance requests, which are on locally led climate actions, be it mitigation or adaptation technologies, as a part of the stakeholder engagement and as part of the capacity building, we do involve the indigenous people and try to look at the indigenous knowledge. So what I'm trying to say here is that in all our work, we have mainstream youth, indigenous people, and gender-related issues in our technical assistance requests. So although on the face of it, you will not see a kind of a separate program, but definitely the capacity building at a local level using indigenous people and knowledge is always part of the activity and a part of the capacity building. capacity building, I would say, activities in the CTCN. We are also working very closely with the Paris Committee on Capacity Building, which has a specific program on indigenous people, and the tech itself has developed a kind of a platform which is going to lead to capacity building of indigenous people. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you again, Jiwan and Mujin, for your presentations and for all your work. Thanks to everyone who participated in this very fruitful discussion. We're now right on track, so we will take a 30-minute coffee break. If we can come back by it's almost 10:25, so if we come back by 5:11, we'll be right on schedule, just giving ourselves a 5-minute head start. And we have a very full presentation that I think is going to be, hopefully generate some good discussion on knowledge sharing. It's a knowledge sharing session on digitalization, scheduled for 11 to 12. So if we can just come back at 5:11, we'll be in good shape in terms of staying on track. All right, so thank you, everyone. Enjoy the break.
Very good. Oh.
I'm not used to technology of the microphone. Good morning, colleagues, again. I'm really very happy that we are back here after tea and coffee, and I know some people just took water. So, as it has been highlighted in our different fora, the potential of digital technologies to alleviate and facilitate adaptation to climate change is significant across various sectors. As per the new program of work, digitalization is one of the key enablers that facilitates system transformation. The CTCN has actively developed and piloted digital technologies, offered capacity building and training, and enhanced the enabling environment through technology assessment, and formulated policies and financing mechanisms in support of digital technology adoption. And the CTN is in coordination with various partners to build synergies for collaboration and support. The first sub-item of this session is on CTCN's work on digitalization. And first of all, I know there are other colleagues who are going to join us and give some statements here. They'll be introduced by Rajiv, and they'll also give some remarks in relation to this. So without wasting much time, let me call upon Rajiv to make his presentation and also introduce the new partners and who are lined up to give us some messages. Thank you. Rajiv, you have the floor.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Since we have added a couple of colleagues in the agenda to provide their statements on digitalization, I would like to be very short. My presentation would dwell upon the work which CTCN has done in 2023 on technical assistance which have components of digitalization. The CTCN is focusing on the use of digital technologies and come up with solutions which have digital applications. In 2023, 10 of the technical assistance which the CTCN completed had components of digital technologies. We also have started working on 10 new technical assistance requests which have components of digital technologies. As we move forward, what we are observing in the Secretariat, more and more the use of digital technology application is becoming more prominent in the delivery of our responses to the technical assistance requested by the countries. And in a way, the use of digital technologies we see is being mainstreamed in all the technical assistance which we are developing or delivering to the countries. Definitely, as a part of our larger program, we have also started developing the National Digitalization Index, which you would hear from our colleagues from the George Washington University later in the day today. And we did have a number of events conducted specifically focusing on digital application of digital technologies for climate solutions. Next slide, please. Just to give you a snapshot, these are the 10 technical assistance which were completed, means in a number of countries. They have different, they are targeting or they are focused on different transformative areas. Like in Bangladesh, it was on mobility, on Peru, it was more related to water, food, energy nexus. St. Kitts, the same case. South Africa, it was more on energy systems. Cambodia, it was local climate information systems. part of resilient infrastructures. Bangladesh, it was assessment for monitoring and assessment of climate change impact on the geomorphology in the coastal areas. Panama, it was again marine dynamic database. Belize and Mexico, it was on circular economy, developing circular economy platform, and Belize also on water monitoring systems. Next slide, please. These are some of the technical assistance requests which we are currently working on, and it is expected that in 2024 these technical assistance requests would be completed. This includes a methodology on using the Earth observation satellites and other technologies like drones to map the forest area in Samoa to estimate what are the kind of carbon sinks are there. In Sudan, which is largely based on use of drone technologies combined with a satellite-based Earth observation system for real-time automatic water level monitoring, and this would be linked to the decision-making system for the Nile River Basin on flooding. Georgia on integrated monitoring of early warnings fire detection system for the forest in Georgia. And we are trying to combine some innovative technologies, not just the Earth observation, but also infrared cameras and sensors which can be placed at strategic regions, at strategic points, and would communicate to the central observatory. And if the temperature rises, certainly there would be alarm and mitigation measures can be taken up. Malawi, I have already told in my earlier presentation, use of mobile technologies to capture data and link it with the decision-making system. And there are a number of it. I'm not going to go through the whole series, but one important point here is I would like to point out that Tunisia technical assistance request, where we are developing smart water network system. It would have a kind of a SCADA system which provides the users on a real-time basis the water consumption and use. So there has means, and we are also piloting this technology in a specific area. This is a GCF-funded readiness program which is likely to be completed in 2024. Next slide, please. Again, these are the examples which a bit more detailed, but I am not going to go in dive deep into it. You have heard about it earlier too, and therefore, in the interest of time, I'm skipping this slide. Next slide. Same here, means we have developed at a local level a climate information system. This is an all-in platform, and it allows all the stakeholders to explore future climate scenarios. And it's not on a real-time basis, but it is more of a predictive modeling which uses to predict what the future actions could be. Again, elements of digitalization, some components would be on machine learning and artificial intelligence. Mali, this is again a real-time data-driven approach for flood mitigation to show the extent of flooding and come up with an early warning system. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this was all in brief of our portfolio of what we are doing currently, or what we have finished doing in 2023, and the ones which we are doing in 2024, which are likely to be completed in 2024. I'll stop here. I would also like to introduce my colleague Sally Redwan, who is the Chief Digital Officer in UNEP, and I request her to make her intervention, a brief intervention. Sally, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rajiv, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to give this very, very brief intervention. I'll just give you a very high-level idea of what we do as digital transformation at UNEP, And if needed, we can schedule a longer session to give you a deeper briefing. Let me just share my screen so you're not just looking at my face, but actually something interesting. I hope you can see my screen now. Just very briefly, as you probably know, is one of the 2 enabling subprograms at UNEP. Of course, at UNEP, we work across 3 pillars of environmental challenges, namely climate change, biodiversity, and pollution. And from a digital transformation perspective, we enable these through digital solutions and approaches, but also we try to mitigate the impact at the same time of deploying these digital technologies, especially things like AI. We work across, or we tend to categorize what we do into 3 categories: things that we implement directly, and I'll touch upon these very briefly. Things that we enable. These include capacity building programs. For example, we have an online course called Digital for Sustainability that has 4 modules, including one on climate change. And we've built something called the Digital Accelerator Lab, which I'll also show you in a minute. And then thirdly, things that we enable. And these are processes within the UN and outside, like, for example, the conversations currently ongoing on AI governance, on digital public infrastructure, digital product passports, and others. Just to highlight 2 of the flagship initiatives that we do. So the World Environment Situation Room is our main data and applications platform that some of you probably will have seen. At the moment, we're moving it from a proof of concept stage, which is essentially an aggregator portal of different data sets and platforms, to a fully integrated data platform that can host use cases, but more importantly, allow the integration of different data sets. So if you want to overlay climate data, for example, with biodiversity, deforestation, migration, socioeconomic, and so on and so forth, you should be able to do that so that the insights become richer and more applicable to policymakers. The new World Environment Situation Room will have 3 components. Of course, there's the main architecture. There are the use cases that we're building on top, and these can be flexible and demand-driven. So even if you're interested in some use cases that we can build together, we can certainly do that. And then, of course, there are data policies that we're developing as well to allow this integration and interoperability. Another thing that we have a mandate from UNEA to do is called the Global Environmental Data Strategy. This, of course, includes climate change as a main component, and it seeks to solve or address the main challenges faced by environmental data at the moment. And so far, we have 4/5 pillars that we're working against, which have been identified as the main challenges or barriers towards effective exchange of global environmental data, namely data quality, data interoperability, i.e. the lack of unified standards, data governance, things like classification, security, data sharing protocols, and so on, and then access and affordability, licensing issues, cost barriers, but also capacity building in most of our member states. I'm racing through these, but just to give you a very brief overview, the Digital Accelerator Lab is basically our vehicle by which we vet and deploy new solutions. So we have a call usually twice a year, internal to UNEP, but also to our partners, to seek new ideas for digital solutions. The last one we did was last February for UNEA 6. And we showcased around 11 prototypes, which are really just mock-ups and pilots, to seek feedback from users, and 9 fully deployed digital platforms, as well as a number of capacity building tools and games and so on. I'll just show you 2 really quickly. Some of these you may already know about. So this is IMEO, the International Methane Emissions Observatory, and its associated early warning system, MARS. So this is to track methane emissions hotspots around the world and send early warnings to governments so they can react appropriately. And we've already piloted this successfully with the government of Argentina. The other one I want to highlight is Environment GPT, which is kind of our take on ChatGPT. It's the large language model we have for the environmental domain. And actually, at the moment, it focuses on two topics, climate change and air quality. The difference between this and the main or the original ChatGPT is that it was trained on a very well-curated corpus of data that UNEP has approved, so it doesn't hallucinate. And then the second thing is when it gives you an answer, it also gives you a link to where that answer came from. So you can also check the reference. We're now expanding it both in terms of depth of the climate and air pollution topics, as well as breadth in terms of adding more pillars like biodiversity, etc. I think I'll stop here. There are many, many more that we have in the pipeline. The use of AI to implement future scenarios and be able to play with variables to help as a planning tool for various policies and interventions, but also for things like where is the best place to put a new power plant or something like that, and also to enhance our country profile so we can deliver kind of a state of the environment report or dashboard per country, and many, many others that I'd be happy to talk to you at a later date. I just don't want to exceed my time today. Of course, if you're interested in learning more about any of this, like I said, very happy to give another briefing, or if you want to have a one-on-one chat on any of these aspects, please feel free to reach out. Thank you very much. And of course, happy to answer any questions. I have to leave in about 25 minutes, but my colleague Paulina can stay on a bit longer if needed. Thank you very much. Back to you, Rajiv.
Thank you, Sally. Chair, I invite you to take over.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Sally. And usually when we hear of the JEF, we hear of UNEP, we associate it with the hosting of the CTCN. And here is a case where UNEP has indicated that they can support some activities. For example, one of the enablers which we have in our work program is digitalization, and you've heard from UNEP. We also have other partners. For example, when you hear of the JEF, you may not know that the JEF is in the same accommodation facility with the World Bank. And when we hear of the World Bank, our thinking jumps to concessional loans to our governments. And coming from developing country perspective, we always feel that climate change funding should be grant-based. But there could be a possibility of the World Bank also addressing the climate technology needs of developing countries, notwithstanding its primary role of giving concessional loans. There could be some grant aspect, but I am not competent enough to deliberate on that. We have here with us a representative from the World Bank, that is Ms. Sarah Ballen. Would request her to give us her message, and I hope that message will contain some of the issues I've raised. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Sarah Ballen, and I'm the co-lead for Green Digital in the World Bank. And as Rajiv said, we met at COP in a very crowded meeting room full of negotiators, very noisy. We had a very short conversation, and we very quickly figured out that there was the basis for further dialogue, and Rajiv invited us to join. It's been very interesting being here the last few days, learning a lot. There might have been dialogue in the last 10 years. I know you've been around for a long time, but I don't believe there's been a very structured dialogue yet between CTCN and the World Bank. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'll speak a little bit about what we do, but even more about how I see linkages based on what I've been hearing the last few days. Next slide. So I'm a representative from the digital vertical of the World Bank. What you see here is hot off the press. This is our new organizational structure from July 1st, so it's not even yet. You can see that digital is a vertical, and we have a new vertical called Planet. It's not because we haven't been doing Planet or digital work previously, but it is really kind of showing that this is an increased priority for the bank, that these two areas are now 2 out of 5 main priorities. We, and climate is part of Planet, but also part of many other work streams we're doing. Our mission has also changed. It used to be end extreme poverty. Now it's also on a livable planet. That's also new. And it might sound a little bit like semantics, but it really does influence our work. By 1st of July, you can see in the bottom, 45% of our work has to have, every dollar we spend has to have a climate co-benefit. And so it really does impact digital projects, but pretty much every other project too, that we have to think in a much more strategic way about the linkages with climate. And that's exactly what I do. So next slide. So I do 2 different things in my work. The first is we have a lot of investments together with governments, as you also were saying, Fred. We work with, so governments are the kind of the main client for me. So I work on greening those investments. That's both in terms of how they can be more climate resilient, how we can lower the footprint of those investments. But the bigger part, and where we see the bigger potential, is really how do we leverage technology in a more effective way? And that's where I see a lot of linkages with what I've been hearing the last few days. And I'll speak a bit more about and give you some examples from this work. So when we started doing this a few years ago, trying to look at this in a more strategic way, we also had dialogue with our client governments, and we could see that many of them have very strong digital transformation strategies. They have very strong climate commitments, but they were often very siloed. And it's also interesting, I've been learning now that the NDEs are usually from the environment or climate side, but not so much necessarily from the digital stakeholders in the countries. And that's interesting for me to see how we could also discuss that a bit more. But we did an analysis of all the NDCs, and we might have replicated something you've also been doing, but we looked at all the NDCs and looked at how technology is represented in the NDCs. And it was quite interesting for us to see that they are in a surprising high amount of NDCs. And it's the lower income segments that have by far the most, which was also very interesting. What we also saw is that we were also looking at actually we have spreadsheets behind this, unpacking what are actually the types of applications. And what we could see there is that it's a quite narrow range of applications. So even though it's very widely represented, it's a few different things that most countries are doing. So not really leveraging where we see the impact. So that's what we decided to try to see. How can we think about this in a better way together with the countries that we work with? And we work on both on kind of the adaptation and resiliency side, but also the mitigation side. And I'll give you a few examples from both. And first, on the resiliency side, I think this slide is not news to anyone in this room, that the countries that have the highest climate risks are also some of the countries that have the lowest digital adoption. And that's, of course, a huge challenge, and a challenge we're working on in terms of bridging the digital divide. But it doesn't mean that technologies are not relevant for these countries. It just means that we have to find the right kind of technology depending on where the countries are. And just to give you one example, we've had very impactful early warning systems in Malawi based on WhatsApp-based systems. We have in other countries very advanced early warning systems, but it's equally important that we work and find the best solutions in each country. Next slide. And this is also figures from Malawi. So even within a country, so what you see here is coverage rates in different parts of the country. So you see 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. You also see hurricane tracks. That's the black arrows you see. So there it's about, okay, we have these risks and we have these coverage rates. What can we then do in different regions of the country? We also want to add energy here because we're increasingly also looking at both, not only the digital access, but also the energy. If you don't have power to power your device, then it doesn't really matter. So we're increasingly looking at these linkages across sectors. Next. Another example is from Ethiopia. And Ethiopia, the bank has big investments in social protection schemes. There's a lot of, as I'm sure you're aware, there's a lot of droughts, there's a lot of flooding. So we put a lot of money together with the government into adaptive social protection schemes. But we haven't been linking it very strongly with digital until recently. And why is that a problem? If you go to the next slide. So what we see is, and this is data from COVID, not from climate, but I think it is applicable. What we see is that countries during COVID that were able to use digital databases, digital ID, trusted data sharing, were able to reach 3 times more beneficiaries. And what we think is that it's the same situation for climate. If we have adaptive social protection schemes trying to reach people that have been in a flood, we need digital ID systems, we need payment systems, and we need to have that value chain of linkages to really be able to scale the end application. That is kind of what the government would see as their climate application. But there's a whole value chain between where we have to have much stronger linkages. So when you said, Fred, before that like actual climate finance, I also see it as the much broader financing that we have to make valuable for climate applications. So this is kind of our house, how we see the different foundations and enablers to be able to really scale climate applications. So we invest together with governments in connectivity, in device access, data infrastructure, exchange systems, policies, digital skills, DPI, that's ID systems, data exchange, payment systems, AI enablers, local language models, safeguards, and all of that together is really what can accelerate the impact of the different climate applications. And we see some of them at household level, so this is kind of early warning systems, emergency cash transfers. We see some of them at sector level, could be in the agriculture sector, forestry sector, where we work together with our colleagues that are investing in these areas, but it could also be at a national level in terms of diversifying economies away from kind of climate-prone sectors. And as you could see before, AI is one of the building blocks. We rarely do AI kind of as standalone. We see it as a tool, and a tool that is kind of part of the puzzle, but not a means to an end, or not kind of a purpose in itself. And we see AI as many different things. And again, it's about finding the right way of implementing a tool like AI. I wanted to give you an example, and this is work in progress. In West Africa, we do participatory climate risk assessments. So we have amazing data coming from local communities across the country, where people say, okay, the water level was here last year, now it's here, and kind of aggregating that data is a great source of information for decision making. Right now, all that data is in PDFs. And it works quite well. The data is used for the communities, and then the communities decide with locally led climate action what they will invest in. So for the individual communities, it's quite efficient. I don't think they will benefit a lot from AI, but at a national level, being able to look at that data, look at how it compares from year to year, being able to kind of look how the national investments are being prioritized is super useful, and we're not able to do that. But this is simple, off-the-shelf algorithms that can optimize that data, and with the new generations of AI, it's actually, we can take quite messy data and get something meaningful out of it. But it's relatively easy to do, and we think it makes sense. The other kind of applications of AI is if we say, okay, we also want to, for the solution side, what's actually the climate application? We want to make a chatbot that people can use to pick drought-resistant seeds. Then we need a large-scale language model to be able to inform that. And that's an entirely different kind of infrastructure required. So there, it's also AI, but in a very different way and with their very different requirements. But we have to figure out in the individual cases, where do we start and what makes sense over time. We also look at digital technologies for mitigation, and I know we're short on time, so I'll be quite quick. But we do work together with our sector colleagues, especially in high emitting sectors. Some of them, I think actually most of them, overlap very well with what CTCN is doing. So it's energy, transport, urban, and agriculture are the sectors we've been working with first. And there, I mean, they've been working with technologies for many, many years. And I think what we're trying to do is say, okay, how can we do it in a more less siloed way? So it's not each line ministry inventing their own technology project without the foundations I spoke about before, and also the foundations that Sally was speaking about. How is data shared between ministries? So there's a lot of things we can do to make it more impactful what we're investing in technology. We can also see that it matters how we do it. So for example, for urban mobility, what we link a technology investment in terms of governance models can either have a positive climate impact or a negative climate impact. And we're first learning these things now. And I think in terms of like the research we were discussing before, figuring out where's the value for money in terms of these investments is a critical task that none of us can do alone. We have other examples in agriculture where there's lots of investment, but there's very low sustainability in the models we've been seeing in terms of climate technology. We have looked at energy sector, where actually there we're seeing the biggest bang for the buck kind of in terms of impact. So in each sector, there's different barriers and opportunities, but we need to understand this together to really figure out where to invest, but also how to invest. And this is also an area we've been working with the European Commission on, but I think there's a huge knowledge gap there the world really has to kind of solve together. Next. So I tried based on the last, one back. I tried based on the last few days, what I've been hearing, to kind of see how is there a more virtuous cycle between what we are doing? Because pretty much everything you've been mentioning, there I can see different linkages. And we can't do everything, but I think we can have a better value chain between what we're doing. If you kind of start from the left, the TNAs are a really, really great tool. We have climate change development reports that we do in the bank together with governments. And I was just discussing the Maldives one in the coffee break. And we've been able to kind of slowly introduce technology as part of the CCDRs, as we call them, but it's not mainstreamed across all of them. And I think having the linkage with the TNAs, that's a no-brainer for me. That, I mean, we discuss with the governments, but being able to kind of pull the TNA knowledge into those documents would be of great value. Then you have your technical assistance, and we were discussing the partnerships and kind of linkages yesterday. And there I see great value in the technical assistance, but also in the role of matchmaking, because as was mentioned yesterday, there's so many things going on in the country. So really your catalytic effect of also making sure to bring the right people that might already be doing other things together. I think that's really also the value, noting the constrained resources that all of us have. I think those linkages is really important. You were mentioning the TA completion workshop and also inviting banks there, and I really welcome that idea. Sometimes it might be too late. I think it's great to have, but even kind of maybe looping in and making that matchmaking a bit earlier would create more incentives and coordination. So I think trying to think about what are the good touch points and what's also practical, but we are in many countries around the world and also where the NDEs are. Then there's kind of the next step, which is the implementation. And there, I think we were discussing the case of South Africa, which is one of the ones where we were kind of saying, okay, here we're actually doing something similar. So we'll be having discussions on that. But I see good opportunities to try to link the great kind of ideas and first steps that the TAs generate with different types of financing vehicles. And then the final step I see is really back to the kind of the house. Because one thing is if we invest in an application, but we also have to make the linkages with the wider digital investments. And there, again, back to the sustainability, if we invest in lots of devices for farmers, but we're not also investing in the connectivity to them, or the devices, or their digital skills, then the sustainability is very low. So I also see kind of to get to the final step, we have to think these things together, and I think we can do that better together. Yeah. Then I won't speak much about this, but the other part of the work we do is really on kind of the flip side, so not the opportunities, but kind of the challenges that technology also create. So we are working hard with governments to kind of expand digital access, but we also know we have to cut the emissions from the sector in half. So if you go to the next. So we are working a lot on trying to unpack where is really kind of the footprint of the sector. And I was also just mentioning one of the things we've been looking at is data centers and how you green data centers. And I got an email yesterday from Azerbaijan that they were using the guide. So it's out there living. If you go to the next slide. So we've been unpacking kind of where is the footprint. And right now, the digital industry emits about as much as the airline industry. So it's substantial, but it's still much smaller than other sectors. Looking ahead, and some of the projections we're getting right now, that even like the last few months, in terms of how AI is changing this, it will likely be a different picture over time. So I do think also as this forum is looking at the opportunities of AI, I do also think it's important to look at what is the kind of energy consequences, and that is something that we are also looking at, and also maybe also for tech in terms of kind of the policy perspectives of this development. E-waste is another issue, and e-waste from solar. We're pushing a lot of solar technologies, but even just e-waste from solar is something to be mindful of. And as I said in the beginning, also, if we're investing all this technology for sustainability purposes, if we're not also thinking about the disruptions in technology from climate change. So what you see, I just moved from Kenya, and this is a flash flood that has disrupted an investment we just made in backbone connectivity. We see a data center in Dominica that has been flooded, and they lost everything for 2 years, and it took them 2 years to rebuild. So as we are all pushing technology, how are we also protecting that technology? I think that's also a shared goal. And I saw that resilient infrastructure was one of your lines of work also. So let me just summarize. I see lots of opportunities to continue this discussion. In terms of convening, we met at COP. I hope next year we could maybe even have some joint activities. We work with ITU on the Green Digital Action Track. And I think last year was kind of a year that marked a lot more technology focus at COP, but we can be even more, I think we can have even more shared voice. Capacity building, we work with different organizations across the world. One of them is Smart Africa, and big scale capacity building where Green Digital is one of the tracks. I see in terms of the knowledge, we have different knowledge products. I can see opportunities there. At a policy level, as I mentioned, with tech, we are looking at how do you green digital policies, but also how do you digitize climate policies, and what does that really look like? And then, as I mentioned, I think there's opportunity at country level to enhance the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for that very elaborate presentation. And I think our eyes are open and the minds on how we can deal with the UNEP and the World Bank in terms of digitalization. And I would try to refrain myself from giving comments now, but give the floor to a representative from GIZ, that is Julia Fink, to also give us her position so that we can later on provide general comments to all the presenters. Julia?
Thank you very much, and was interesting listening to the first two or three presentations on knowledge sharing on digital. We are partnering with the World Bank, also with UNEP, since a couple of years now on digital and green transformation, which is also one of the priorities of our global Digital program, which I am speaking for at GIZ, which is implementing for the German Ministry for Development Cooperation, but also other donors. Thank you very much for inviting. I could also talk a little longer, but I will try to focus on some really concrete use cases today. Next slide, please. Our global digital program has, which you can see here with its main action areas, has reached more than 16 million people so far and works with a total of 730 organizations on a sustainable digital transformation. We have contributed with our implementing experience on digital and climate, for example, on the AI for Climate initiative by TEC and CTCN within the regional climate weeks, the high-level COP28 event, and also further side events, for example, on digital readiness. Thank you. Here you can see some of our priority areas we are working on, which is, for example, digital skills, regulation, and local digital ecosystems, which are implemented through digital transformation centers, also accelerating innovation through an innovation fund for sustainable development, and also accelerating, implementing, piloting and scaling digital public goods, which you can see here through different initiatives, for example, Fair Forward on AI, but also data for policy to unlock the potential of data for policy recommendations. I will focus now on Fair Forward to just give some insights how we are piloting innovations in the field of AI for climate, which could also be scaled as they are developed as digital public goods. We are focusing on climate, on a just transition especially, but also on, for example, gender, feminist development cooperation, and further areas to support an inclusive, ethical and human-centered sustainable approach of digital development. Next slide, please. So one of the initiatives I wanted to highlight is Fair Forward, Artificial Intelligence for All, which has as its main goal to democratize AI worldwide and foster local innovation by open sourcing AI. You can see the main focus areas here, which is to improve access to training data and open AI technologies for local innovation, but also strengthen local technical know-how on AI and developing policy frameworks for ethical AI and foster dialogue on AI and data protection. I will dive deeper on this in a second. You can see here the main goals in order, for example, to accelerate or address the challenges of climate goals, climate change, for example, both climate mitigation and adaptation strategies and use cases. The open approach of AI is highly important to our initiative Fair Forward, and the AI goods and data sets that are being developed are increasingly used in partner countries for local innovation by actors in government, business, or civil society. So the next slide, please. One use case you can see here is the high carbon stock approach from Indonesia. With the support from Fair Forward, HCSA is working with local mapping organizations to gather essential information about trees throughout Indonesia's forests in close collaboration with local communities, which enhances the AI analysis of the data sets and enhances the accuracy of forest classification and helps to identify areas with high carbon stock, which is crucial for carbon sequestration and can also help preserve local and indigenous livelihoods, and thus be applied also, for example, for transparent value chains. One important approach of GIZ you can see here is also the stakeholder engagement for inclusive climate solutions. There is a lot of potential for scaling throughout the last years. The pilot has been developed, which is now can now be scaled globally. First countries are Senegal, Kenya, and Rwanda. So the next slide, please. To show at least two examples in which areas we are working on AI, here is one use case from Rwanda, piloting landslide monitoring system, which shows that we are also working for adaptation scenarios. In this case, a camera-based system is supported through computer vision and weather stations to help detect a landslide, monitor a landslide in Rwanda and help local communities. To come to an end, we can have a chat on this later within the lunch break. The next slide now, please. There are several areas for collaboration within FairForward, our AI initiative, but also beyond from this. For example, on use cases which can be scaled as digital public goods, which is the use cases I already presented, but also in the field of climate smart agriculture, for example, or energy electrification, for example, in Uganda. We are also working on the aspect of the immense footprint, energy footprint, climate footprint of AI, and develop guidance on how to reduce the carbon intensity of computing. So also happy to share our knowledge on this. Then we're also doing capacity building programs with regard to sustainable and ethical use on AI with different boot camps, for example, e-learning courses that have already reached more than 60,000 learners. And we are developing, for example, policy frameworks for ethical and sustainable AI with different partners, for example, with Smart Africa bilateral cooperations. This is what I want to share for now. So I think there are some synergies within AI, but also beyond, and happy to discuss how GIZ can support your important work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, more additional points about digitalization and AI and the possible transformation they can cause. And I would like also to continue hearing from other institutions. And I'd like to give the floor to the following presenters from the George Washington University, Mukesh and Sushi. They are both connected online, so please, the floor is open to Mukesh and Sushi to give their presentations.
Good morning, colleagues. Good afternoon and good evening. Can you all hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. Fantastic. Greetings from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much. My name is Mukesh Devaswamy. I am with the George Washington University Environmental Energy Management Institute. With me, I have my colleague, Dr. Suchartha Gopal, who is the CEO of Chatman Technologies and a professor at the Boston University. Well, first and foremost, we would like to thank the entire board of CTCN for giving us this very unique opportunity to participate in today's very important conversation. We will be presenting a project that we have been working with in the last couple of months that focuses on a digital readiness index, developing an index for developing countries to assess their digital readiness and potentially transform their energy infrastructure applying digital tools. The approach that we have undertaken in this project includes performing a meta-analysis of available literature and reports, identifying relevant variables and pillars, collecting statistical data from trusted sources to produce the index, and identify missing gaps, and further on, outline recommendations. Our team is composed of scientists and experts from non-Annex 1, Annex 1 countries and the private sector. Just to let you know, the project started back in October 2023 and will come to completion by the end of next month, May 31st. Before I request my colleague Suchi to present some of our initial findings, just to let you know, these are our initial findings that are still under review, and final results will be presented to CTCN by the end of next month. Before I hand it over, we do realize we're standing between you and the lunch break, so we'll try our best to make this as seamless as possible. And with that, thank you very much, and over to you, Suchi.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. I'm talking to you from Austin, Texas. I usually reside in Boston, but I'm here for a meeting. So we sort of heard from many of the speakers about the compelling impression of what's happening in developing countries, which have more than a large proportion of 6.82 billion of the 7.9 billion of the world population. All of them seem to have an increasing number of mobile phone users, and 10% of the world population at this point has no access to electricity. And our challenge in this project was to look for the pillars, what exactly will explain digital readiness index of countries in the developing South, and how do we go about creating this in terms of data and statistics and analysis. So Mukesh sort of explained some of the things in terms of the studies that we did. We did a literature search. We used the PRISMA method to extract information on the pillars. We identified the pillars. We visualized using knowledge graphs. We tried to identify what are the gaps in our understanding. Where exactly is information missing in terms of constructing this index? And how do we go about identifying variables that we can use from various collections, like including the UN and the World Bank, and how do we compose an index, and what would be the techniques we use, statistically speaking, in order to create this index, and what would be the insights and the final report. So the final report should be ready by the end of May. So the pillars that we identified using the PRISMA methodology for data literature and data review, we came up with 8 different pillars. Obviously, some of the speakers today have mentioned some of these pillars. Digital infrastructure, the existing infrastructure is important. Physical infrastructure, accessibility to energy is important. Energy transition, how many countries already use renewable energy, that's important. Accessibility and inclusivity, including the issues of genders, education, which again, somebody addressed, is important. We also looked at the fact that countries need to be encouraging, countries need to have policies in place, regulations in place, and obviously digital skills and capacity building, which was also addressed this morning, is important. Last but not the least is technological innovation. We measure technological innovation in multiple ways, and this indicates that this is pretty hard to gather for countries in the developing South, because we don't have the right data available across every country, as well as financing solutions. And so I'm glad the person from World Bank pointed out to some of the solutions that the World Bank is creating. And this is again important to add to the NDRI pillars. This particular chart shows you the data that we gathered in terms of numbers to create a database for all of the countries that we needed to study. So we looked at how many, gender and energy justice included things like, well, how would you go about looking at people's access to clean fuels? What would be the carbon intensity? What exactly is the usage of renewables? What is the fixed broadband subscription in a country? What is the literacy rates in the country? And the learning adjusted years in school is one of the measures we used. Looking at technological innovation, we used the WIPO's Global Innovation Index to sort of basically measure the innovation happening in countries, and obviously access and affordability to electricity as well as per capita consumption was one of the other data variables that we used. When we put it all together to compute the composite index, we came up with 3 different methods of how we could compose this index. And we're going to share with you the simplest one, which is the ordering based on scores, normalizing the scores and looking at the composite scores by adding all of it together. So when you look at this using the standardized z-scores as well as the normalized scores, you see the plot in blue and the plot in green. And this shows that there is countries which are pretty prepared in terms of their digitalization index. And that's no surprise. Singapore is an outstanding example of this particular cohort. Then there are countries that are developing, which have a high chance of achieving digital preparedness in the next 5 years or next 10 years. And then there are the countries which are, many of them in sub-Saharan Africa, that have a very low index value, meaning that they lack one or the other of the pillars that we had discussed before. So when we put all of this together and see the plots using radar charts, you can see what countries look like. We looked at a few countries from every continent, and you can see that Singapore, for example, has the largest of the areas of the radar chart, using not all of the variables, but 8 of the variables out of the 24 that we had collected. And you can see that Singapore lacks renewable energy. At the same time, when you look at Brazil, which is on your right column, you notice that Brazil has a lot of renewable energy, but lacks other things. So each country shows a different paradigm in terms of its digital preparedness based on the factors that we looked at. So we are, composing the same kind of index using principal component structural equations and things, and putting together a whole picture. And we are also looking at, obviously, the things of, developing these AI, readiness chatbots and things that you talked about, which would be what is called sovereign AI for each country, and knowledge that each country can bring from their neighbors, members in their cohort, and make sense of how to go about getting ready for the energy transition that has to happen with climate change. And I let Mukesh take over. Mukesh?
Thank you very much, Suchi. I don't know if there's time for questions, but before that, a quick thank you to our sponsors, CTCN and UNEP, for supporting this project. We'd also like to thank Rajiv, his entire team at the CTCN, through many discussions, has really strengthened this effort in this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, presenters. According to the timetable, we are just supposed to go for our lunch now. But looking at these presentations, I think they have been quite very good and eye-opening, and I feel we should maybe sacrifice 10 minutes of our lunch, and then we allow some comments, questions, and clarifications. So we'll start with the advisory board members, and we also give opportunity to our observers. I see Annie.
I'll be super quick. We're all hungry. But this was a super interesting topic with fantastic presentations. Thank you to all the presenters. I just was very excited to hear about the UNEP Digital Accelerator. In my own department, Natural Resources Canada, in my own group, we have the Digital Accelerator for our department, which also works a lot across all the various departments of the Government of Canada. And this has been really useful in mainstreaming AI and using AI in the work of the Forest Service, of the Geological Survey, of the Earth observation folks, etc. So having a digital accelerator right inside of UNEP is a fantastic resource for the CTCN, and I would be keen to know of any linkages that the CTCN Secretariat will already have with this really ready-made resource. And I really note from that same presentation that there are rules and criteria around the choice of vendors for AI. Very interesting. So that might be something to look into, if not already done, obviously. In terms of the CTCN's own activities, in terms of using AI as an enabler to achieve our program of work. And finally, the question of interoperability is really central, so that the projects are not just like standalone mushrooms and there is no connection. And I heard from a few speakers about that question of interoperability, especially from our World Bank speaker, and that is also something to keep in mind within the CTCN, so that when there is a project, it can be leveraged for others. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. I think the next is Stivian.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And thanks to all the presenters for the really great presentations. I just wanted to make two comments. First to GIZ, I think with the artificial intelligence for all regarding the policy framework, I think there is quite a lot of scope. I saw that a lot of the work is on the national strategies, but I think we could potentially look into a collaboration with the tech to develop a global strategy. I think there's scope there, and we'd definitely be open to having that discussion in the future. And again, to Sarah, I think it was very clear that there's many areas for collaboration between the tech and the CTN and the World Bank, and definitely want to express positive acknowledgement from our side, and we definitely look forward to working with you on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Beto.
Yeah, so in the same direction from my side, I see many thanks for the great presentations, and I see also a lot of potential for collaboration and maybe some suggestion or question. I think first to Zara from the World Bank, I think linking the TNAs and the CCDRs, and I understand the CCDRs, my understanding, are very similar to the LTLETs, and we have addressing this also in the technology executive committee, that we have the linkage between the technology committee and the LTLETs. Would it be possible to link that maybe? And also together with AI, we have it in the joint work program of the tech and the CDCN, the capacity building for NDEs. So I think that could be a potential case for the capacity building program if CDCN is interested. CDCN is the lead here. Basically to have a case where we link AI and maybe with a chatbot, linking CCDRs, TNAs, and LTLETs. So that is one idea. And in a similar way, another suggestion or idea or question to the George Washington University. We also have decided in the tech that we are working towards a guidebook on energy TNAs. So I see your program here on AI for energy readiness of the countries, also quite some overlap with a potential TNA on energy. So also here, would there be interest? Do you see potential for collaboration? Thank you.
Thank you, Bertrand. And next is Peter, and then Alistair. We close so that we don't sacrifice much of our lunchtime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This is just a question to the very interesting presentation from the World Bank. So in this new structure, where does technology in general and technology transfer, where does that fit? And I'm sorry I'm going beyond the digitalization vertical here, but I couldn't see it on that scheme, so I suppose it's cost-cutting or something. So it's just a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Alistair?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I'm rather than a comments, I just want to make as a question or actually a call for solutions. So actually, we're not, we don't doubt any values of these technologies or solutions being presented, but in our experience, including our work with GISA to design a data management framework, however good we design the framework, the conundrum here is that the ministers are not willing to share data with countries. That's a deal breaker. Yeah, so no matter how advanced our AI solutions are designed, if countries do not want to share data with each other, to be honest, there's nothing we can do as technologists. So I'm just wondering whether the UN system could do something to persuade the minister to say okay to data sharing request. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. And going back to our presenters, first of all, I noted that there is a lot of inclination towards the mitigation, but I request that as we talk of digitalization, let's also consider addressing issues to do with the adaptation so that we have a balanced approach. And you know, developing countries, adaptation is very key to them, though they're also interested in mitigation. And in linkage with that, we have also the NDCs. There was a lot of emphasis on NDCs, but we also have the NAPS process that would also benefit from the digitalization. And then this has already been emphasized that at least we should link these digitalization processes from the various partners. We link it to the TNA process and then also the joint work program. And think if that is done, we shall really have effective collaboration and partnership. But I'll give 2 minutes for all the presenters to respond. Each one may take about maybe 20, 30 seconds. Thank you. I start with the UNEP.
Hello, everyone. Since Sally has left, I'm representing UNEP, but I'm not sure which question I shall address. Is it on the last one on interoperability? Could you please clarify? Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Can we now go to, sorry? Oh, she didn't get the question? Yeah, I mean, if there's no question directly to you, then there's no need to respond, but I was just thinking if you have, I think there was a question from Annie. Annie, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, my question was not to UNEP, it was to the CTCN Secretariat regarding working with UNEP with the Digital Accelerator. Is anybody from the Secretariat available to discuss its activities with this group? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annie. Rajiv just stepped out, as you can see. We are in discussions with Sally actively, and the fact that we invited her is to strengthen this cooperation. And we were discussing that maybe there is a possibility of a presentation that goes deeper on this in maybe the ND forum, if maybe colleagues and members are in acceptance of that, but we'll take this forward and discuss with Secretary and then come back to you after lunch with an answer on what has already been done. If this is acceptable, I need to consult with Rajiv. Thank you.
Thank you, Yonep, for that response. Yeah, I would like now to request GIZ. In case you don't have any question to you, you can just pass on maybe to the next, and the next will be, let's hear from GIZ.
Yes, thank you for all the interesting connections. I think it is important to link with tech on also the global dimension on sustainability of AI and strategies on this. So happy to further discuss on this. Also linking the further work GIZ is supporting. For example, as you mentioned, data economy, but also our data lab. So there are different connections we can build on sustainability of AI, but also further connections mentioned here as interoperability and so on. So happy to discuss later. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have intervention from the World Bank?
Yes, I will try to fast forward, be very quick. On the LCS and the CCDRs, let's definitely discuss that. Technology transfer, I gave you the simple version, but there is also cross-cutting pillars, and one of them, not pillars, but horizontals, and one of them is innovation technology transfer, so that is definitely there. In terms of cross-border data sharing, definitely a big issue, but something we, and I know also GIZ and others are working on. So it's an issue really to scale. We work also very much at regional level with different regional entities, and that's a big discussion in terms of climate also. Then in terms of the George Washington the kind of the modalities there, we don't have time for a longer discussion. I think it's very interesting what is being done there. You can discuss if it's what are the right parameters for different types of digital technologies, and I think especially for AI, there are different new demands that have not been there before. So I think it's important to continue to evolve this, but also to think of the sustainability of something like this, and maybe also loop into some of the link with some of the organizations like the World Bank and others that are already collecting some of the data, just to make sure it's easy to kind of start it, but to really see like what would be the sustainability. That would be quite interesting. But very keen to continue the discussion. Thank you.
Sarah, can we have any response from Mukesh and Sushi?
Yeah. Okay, can you see me? Okay, perfect. So thank you very much, Vice Chair. Just quickly to the question or comment from the Vice Chair of TEC. Yes, definitely. This is a very important topic and a lot of synergies and common areas between the work and ambition of TEC and CTC and of course the World Bank. And we'd be more than happy to be part of those conversations, working further, right? Not just with energy, but across the landscape of the topics that is, important here, including, within the SDGs as well. And quickly also to Alistair's comment, spot on. It's very important. We will have the framework, we have all the tools of digitalization, but unless the country and grassroots level stakeholder shares data, there's not much we can do. But I do think here that's an important opportunity that needs to be highlighted on, because multilateral organizations, we are working with the parties when the member states are funding these operations down there, at the bottom, and make them realize how we can optimize resources, use of resources, resource mobilization, and investments by digitalization and AI. So this conversation needs to go directly with these parties and member states to see how we can really optimize the use of fundings and resources. Suchi, any comments from your side?
No, I just was going to say that we need a lot of data, and we did use a lot of UN data and World Bank data. So it's very hard to find more and more variables that are well vetted, and this index needs to keep going. We need to keep building on it. So that was very important and a very thoughtful comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our presenters. And I think you've heard that there's the appetite to build and strengthen partnership with GIZ, with the World Bank, with UNEP. In addition to being the host, I think you are very critical in advancing digitalization and the data collection for climate technology. And I think we welcome all those. And then research institutions like George Washington University, I think we are ready to work with you. We are ready to partner with you. And we should find a better way of moving together and advance the cause of technology development and transfer. With those remarks and with the interventions from the advisory board members and observers, I would like really to appreciate you for your active participation. I would now, before we go for lunch, I would request that you wait. There's some communication from the Secretariat. Maybe they want to make some announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I have two logistical points that I wanted to make on behalf of the Secretariat and the board. One is a reminder that advisory board members have been invited to an informal lunch with the Secretariat and UNEP staff to discuss resource mobilization and partnerships. That meeting will be in room 0.3.25. That's inside the main dining room. So the place where you get your food. If you get your food and then walk towards the microwaves, that meeting room is apparently behind the microwaves, and Julia will try to make herself visible to help people find it. But this is what we call a brown bag lunch in the States. So if you want to join this meeting, we're not asking you to skip lunch. Get your food first, and then all advisory board members are invited to join this lunchtime informal meeting. And then the other one is, we hope that everyone has planned to be able to stay till the end of the meeting this afternoon, but I understand some of you will have to leave early, and simply asking that those of you who are leaving early, please make sure that you return your blue badge before you leave the building to anyone in the Secretariat. Did the Secretariat have anything else to add, or did I cover it?
No? There was a question from Annie, which I will take up one-to-one.
Colleagues, we have up to 13 hours for our lunch, and make sure we are here by 13 hours. So use the time very effectively, knowing that you have to be here by 1 o'clock. Thank you.